Let me be blunt with you. You don't make her miss you by disappearing. You make her miss you by giving her something worth missing, then protecting it with silence that speaks for you. Most men confuse absence with mystery. They vanish, thinking the void will pull her toward them. But a void with no gravity does nothing. What creates gravity is presence. Your energy, your standards, your rhythm, followed by intentional quiet that lets her mind echo with you. If what you've heard so far is shifting how you see yourself, stay with me until the end, because we're just getting started and I'm going to hand you a psychological framework that rewires how you approach communication, attraction, and your own time. Here's the truth most men never learn. Silence is not a punishment, it's a frame. It's how a man calibrates the pace of intimacy, guards his focus, and demonstrates selectivity without saying, "I'm selective." It is a signal sent through the absence of noise, and it only works if the life behind that silence is full. When your days have weight, work that matters, standards you defend, a body you're building, a mission you keep promises to, your quiet becomes charged. Without that, silence turns into insecurity holding its breath. That's the difference between making her wonder where you are and making her worry you've crumbled. One projects strength, the other leaks neediness. Think of attraction as a signal to silence ratio. The signal is every meaningful interaction you create. Your eye contact that doesn't flinch, your humor that lands because you're not performing, your ability to lead plans, your warmth that isn't thirsty, your boundaries delivered with calm. The silence is the space you allow after, so the experience has room to breathe inside her. Without space, attraction suffocates. Without signal, silence says nothing. When you learn to shape both, you never chase. You set tempo. You let curiosity work for you instead of anxiety working against you. You've been taught to fill every gap, to reply instantly, to announce your feelings because communication is key. Listen carefully. Communication is key when there's something worth protecting. But constant explanation is a tax weak men pay to justify their presence. A man whose time is real doesn't announce every move. He patterns it. He builds a predictable baseline, so she feels safe. And then he plays with micro-unpredictability, so she feels alive. That dance between safety and spark is where desire blooms. Too much safety with no mystery, she gets bored. Too much mystery with no safety, she gets anxious. The psychology of silence is about balancing those forces with your behavior, not your speeches. Start by installing a baseline. Baseline is the rhythm of contact that shows two things. You are consistent and you are not captive. If you've just met, the baseline is simple. When you talk, be fully present. When you're done, return to your path. You are not standing at the door of her attention, pressing your face against the glass. You are the man who has a place to be. You send messages with intention, not to keep the line alive, but to move the energy forward. You meet her in person because you lead, not because you're trying to prove that you're worthy of a meeting. Then, and this is where most men fail, you stop. Not a cold, anxious stop, a clean stop. You end the exchange while the emotion is still warm. You don't bleed it out with more words. You close the loop with a short, decisive line that shows you're comfortable ending things on a high note. Her mind registers this as strength, a man who doesn't need to drag attention out of her, a man who trusts that what he gave is enough to echo. Now the echo matters. The human mind is wired to complete unfinished experiences, the Zeigarnik principle. When you leave a conversation at 80% instead of 130%, you create a gentle open loop. Not manipulation, not games, a natural invitation for her curiosity to participate. She will think about your last look, your last sentence, the way your presence felt. But if you leave at 20%, confused, cold, or random, you're not using silence. You're using avoidance. The distinction is everything. You create satisfaction with a hint of room for more. Then your quiet distributes that feeling across her day. She will scan for you, not because you disappeared, but because you created weight and then stepped back. Here is how you turn this into a daily practice without being weird about it. Set communication windows, not rules you announce to her, standards you hold for yourself. You reply in batches when you are most present, not all day in a low-quality drip. You don't weaponize delay. You simply refuse to make your phone your master. When you respond, you bring energy, clarity, and a lead. You avoid one-word, low-effort replies when she invests. You also avoid emotional essays when she sends a LOL. You mirror the level of investment and then slightly lead it forward. This equalizes the dance. It prevents two traps: overpursuit and emotional debt. Overpursuit is you doing way more than she is while telling yourself it's because you're romantic. Emotional debt is you responding to every micro-ping with maximum effort, training her to expect instant access to a man who doesn't even give that access to himself. Understand that not all silence is equal. There is protective silence when you're in the middle of deep work or training and you choose to complete your task before you indulge in talking. There is reflective silence, after intimacy or conflict, where you allow emotions to settle so you can choose words cleanly. There is boundary silence, when a line gets crossed and you state your standard once and then step back, not to punish, but to let your action teach. And there is reset silence, when the dynamic slips into low-value patterns and you recalibrate by withdrawing the behavior that fed the pattern. Each type sends a different message. Protective says, "My time has integrity." Reflective says, "My words are precise." Boundary says, "I won't debate my worth." Reset says, "I choose dynamics that lift us both." You don't explain these categories to anyone. You live them, and her nervous system learns them. Before you get clever with silence, build anchors. Anchors are the reasons your absence feels like something is missing. Think sensory, not just intellectual. The cadence of your voice when you're calm and decisive. The way you listen without fidgeting. Your scent, clean, simple, consistent. Your eye contact that warms rather than interrogates. The quality of your hello when you see her and the quality of your I'm out, talk later when you leave. The inside joke born out of shared observation, not forced humor. The way you lead logistics without asking her to carry the mental load. These anchors make silence land differently. Without anchors, silence is emptiness. With anchors, silence is replay. You'll also want to learn the difference between disappearing and windowing. Disappearing is dropping off a cliff, leaving her to feel abandoned. Windowing is opening and closing clear windows of engagement. When the window opens, your attention is clean. No half-scrolling, no split focus, no passive-aggressive drifts. When the window closes, it closes on time. You don't get dragged into low-value loops because you're scared she'll lose interest. You let her feel the close. This teaches respect for your time, and it elevates hers. A man who values his minutes becomes the man she wants to be on time for. Now, let's talk about text, the arena where most men self-sabotage. The rule is simple. Text is for coordinating and flirting, not for proving depth. If she wants depth, she'll chase the in-person. When you write, ask yourself, am I adding energy or siphoning it? A text that makes her feel something is better than a novella that tells her everything. Use open loops lightly. Remind me to tell you the thing I noticed earlier. Use sensory cues without turning poetic. You'd appreciate the view where I'm at. Clean air, wide silence. Use decisive leading. I've got Thursday 7 to 9. Drinks at the small place on the corner. You in? Then stop. Your silence right after a clear lead is powerful. It conveys that your life will move whether she answers or not. Not because you don't care, because you're not building your week around a maybe. If this is hitting something inside you, drop your thoughts below. I read every single one because the patterns men struggle with are patterns we can rewrite together. When you share, you stop repeating your mistakes in private, and you start training your nervous system in public, calm, grounded, decisive. Next, adopt what I call the two-switch system, warmth and distance. Warmth opens her, distance preserves you. Most men leave both switches stuck, either full warmth that floods the dynamic and drowns polarity, or full distance that starves it and creates resentment. You need modulation. When she leans in, you let your warmth rise. A slower voice, a deeper breath, a good to see you. A hand on the small of her back when you lead her through a crowded room. When the energy peaks, you switch to distance. You end on a high, you break eye contact first. You return to your life without theatrics. That shift from warmth to distance is what writes you into her nervous system. She will revisit the feeling privately, and your silence will have fuel. There are mistakes you must avoid if you want silence to become desire rather than damage. Don't use silence as punishment. The silent treatment is a juvenile power play that erodes trust. When something matters, you address it once clearly and, if necessary, you step back, not to make her suffer, but to protect the standard. Don't advertise your absence. A man who brags about not texting is a man who still needs attention to validate his distance. Don't vanish after intimacy. That's not silence. That's cowardice. Give closure to the moment. It can be as simple as, "Today was good. I'll be off grid for a bit, training and work. We'll talk later." That line costs nothing and communicates everything: warmth, boundaries, leadership. In conversation, silence is the most masculine punctuation. Don't rush to fill the space after you speak. Let your words land, then watch. She will reveal more when you place your attention like weight, not like a spotlight you wave around trying to impress. When she talks, let there be the occasional beat before you answer. It tells her you consider, you choose, you're not performing. When flirtation rises, hold eye contact 1 second longer than comfortable, then look away first with a faint smile. That is micro-silence. It's presence without words. It says, "I'm tuned to you, and I'm not trying to own the air." You also need to understand how attachment styles respond to silence so you can calibrate. If she runs anxious, long gaps with no signal will trigger protest. You don't need to be on call. You do need to be clear. Use small reassurance signals followed by space. A quick, head down, talk later is a bridge that calms her system. If she runs avoidant, heavy pursuit will push her away. Use more distance with high-quality warmth when you engage. If she is secure, a consistent baseline with occasional novelty spikes. Spontaneous plans. A day you disappear into your mission will keep polarity alive. Calibration is leadership. It's not changing who you are. It's choosing how you deliver yourself. Speaking of leadership, stop trying to get permission to act like a man. Lead plans. Own your schedule. Be direct and courteous. If she declines, you don't sulk. You pivot once. If she still doesn't invest, you detach. Not dramatically, but decisively. This is where silence becomes a filter. It reveals the difference between "I like your attention" and "I like you." The former wants you when you're convenient. The latter invests even when you're not available on demand. Your distance flushes out who is truly drawn to your gravity versus who is just thirsty for your validation. Now let's make this actionable with a 7-day reset you can use whether you're dating or you're already in something real. Day 1. Take inventory. How many times did you respond instantly this week because you were scared of losing her interest? How many times did you extend conversations because you were afraid of being the one to end them? How many times did you fill silence because your own anxiety was louder than your presence? Write it down. Awareness strips these habits of their power. Day 2. Define windows. Choose 2 or 3 times each day where you'll process communication. Outside those windows, you are unavailable by default unless it's urgent. You don't announce it. You live it. Day 3. Create anchors. Upgrade your "hello." Upgrade your "I'm out." Upgrade your first 5 minutes when you see her. Present, centered, decisive. Day 4. Warm distance. Give a peak moment, a call that matters, a meeting you lead, then end it cleanly. Day 5. Withdraw the drip. No more cheap pings or heart emoji maintenance. If you say something, say something. If you have nothing to say, hold your tongue. Day 6. Expand your world. Do one thing that increases your life's weight. Gym, deep work sprint, skill training, so your silence has substance. Day 7. Review and calibrate. Did she lean in? Did curiosity rise? Did your own anxiety drop? Great. Keep going. If not, identify where you used silence as avoidance or as a performance. Correct it. Social presence matters. If she never sees signs of your life, your silence can look like emptiness. You don't need to broadcast, but you can make your life visible in a way that has taste. Photos with purpose. Wins without bragging. Movement without noise. When she sees you in motion, friends, projects, discipline, your quiet becomes credible. It's not "I'm ignoring you," it's "I'm building things." That distinction is magnetic. Learn the art of the last line. The last line is the sentence that closes your exchange and sets the tone for the silence that follows. It should be light, decisive, and non-needy. "I'm jumping into a sprint. Talk later." "I'm out. Good night." Thursday's locked. Looking forward. What you don't do is apologize for leaving. You don't over-explain your schedule. You don't drop passive-aggressive crumbs. The last line is the door click behind you. Clean, confident, final. Here's another principle. Respond to energy, not to time. Most men reply because time has passed, not because energy has changed. They see 3 hours on the clock and panic. The calibrated man checks the quality of the exchange. If there's nothing meaningful to add, he doesn't add noise. When he does respond, he moves things forward. He is either building a moment or cementing a plan. If you train yourself to operate this way, your messages acquire a reputation. When your name lights up her screen, she leans in because every time you appear, something happens. Let's address jealousy. Some men try to trigger it with forced silence and obvious social proof. It backfires. Healthy jealousy is a side effect of you having a life and being selectively attentive, not a stunt. When she feels that other people value your time and you aren't desperate to give it away, she will step up if she's truly drawn to you. If she doesn't, your silence becomes your protection from investing in the wrong direction. Either way, you win. When conflict hits, silence becomes even more important. Most men fight for airtime. They over-explain, defend, and flood the conversation until both people are exhausted and nothing is resolved. Practice this instead. You state your perspective simply, you own your part, you express your standard, and then you stop. You do not chase understanding. You let your action do the rest. If she can meet you, you'll know, because she will. If she can't, you'll also know, because she won't. Your silence here isn't withdrawal, it's the space you hold for the truth to surface. In long-term dynamics, silence evolves into ritual. A couple that thrives knows when to talk and when to just be. The masculine role here is leadership in tempo. You create pockets in your week where nothing is demanded and everything is allowed. Quiet dinners, walks with phones down, shared mornings where few words do a lot. You also create pockets where you're gone, not as punishment but as nourishment for your identity. Training, building, brothers, solitude. When you return, you bring something back with you. Stories, ideas, a sharper edge. This cycle of leaving and returning keeps polarity alive. Without it, relationships flatten into roommates who discuss logistics and wonder why the spark died. Let's zoom in on micro behaviors that telegraph strength in silence. When you enter a room, you don't rush, you plant. Shoulders down, spine tall, breath deep. When you listen, your face isn't needy, neutral, warm. When you speak, your voice sits lower, not forced, just anchored. When you choose to end a conversation, you do it without apologizing or flinching. I'm going to make a move. Good to see you. When she tests you with little delays or pushes, you don't react with sarcasm or sulking. You reduce investment, not respect. Those micro behaviors accumulate. They make your silence feel like leadership rather than distance. Now, how do you re-enter after silence? Most men crawl back with explanations. Don't. Re-entry should be clean and forward-moving. You reference nothing unless there was a real rupture that requires repair. You bring a plan. You bring energy. Then head down. Thursday 7. Join me. If she asks, you answer simply. No monologue. Paradoxically, the less you justify, the more she senses your time has integrity. And integrity is sexy. Consider this reframe. Silence is not the opposite of communication. It's a form of it. It says, I am centered. It says, I am not transactional. It says, I will not trade my attention for scraps of validation. It tells her that you are not trying to win by flooding the space. You win by curating it. You're not absent. You're selective. You're not withholding. You're choosing delivery that increases value. If you know a brother who needs to hear this, send it to him today. Don't keep it to yourself. Good men waste years bleeding attention into people who never earned it, because they were never taught that boundaries can be silent and still be loving. There are red flags, and your silence should protect you from them. If your quiet is always met with panic, blame, or threats, you're not with an adult. If your boundaries, stated calmly once, are treated like bargaining chips, you're teaching someone how to disrespect you. That's when silence becomes separation. Not because you're cold, but because your mission cannot survive constant emotional fire drills. You leave quietly, with dignity. You say little because there is little left to say. On the other hand, when a woman is truly into you and aligned with you, your silence turns into polarity. She will match your rhythm because she enjoys the way it makes her feel, steady yet excited. She will volunteer details of her schedule because she respects yours. She will initiate sometimes because reciprocity is natural when admiration is real. You won't have to engineer this. Your job is to maintain your baseline, keep your life heavy with purpose, and prevent the drift into constant availability that kills desire. Remember this: attention is not intimacy. Conversation is not connection. Access is not affection. You convert attention into attraction by making your presence impactful and your absence dignified. You convert conversation into connection by choosing depth over frequency. You convert access into affection by being rare when it matters and generous when you choose. If what you're hearing has redrawn even one line in your mind, if you feel calmer, taller, more contained, then let that feeling turn into a small action today. Close your phone when you train. End a conversation on a high instead of dragging it. Give a clear lead and let silence carry it. This is how men reclaim their time and, with it, their magnetism. There is one more layer. Silence is also how you listen to yourself. The man who never stops talking to others is often the man who never hears his own impulses clearly. Take a walk without music. Sit with your decisions before you make them. Give your instincts their own room. Then, when you speak, you will speak from a deeper place. Women feel that difference immediately. Words from surface are noise. Words from center are direction. Silence is the bridge between the two. Here is your backbone in one breath. Offer a presence that hits. Close the moment cleanly. Step back with purpose. Return with leadership. Repeat. When you live this way, you never ask, "How do I make her miss me?" You ask, "How do I make my time so valuable that missing me is inevitable?" That question changes everything you do. If this has been a mirror you needed, if it cut through the fog and gave you language for what you felt but couldn't name, commit to staying with this work. Subscribe to this kind of conversation so you keep your edge sharp. Leave a comment with the exact behavior you're going to implement this week. Saying it out loud makes it real. And if a brother of yours is pouring himself into the void, send this to him. The strongest men aren't the loudest. They're the ones whose silence has meaning, whose presence has weight, and whose time is a privilege, not a given.